Flying Casuals brought to you by Patreon supporters Brent, Andy Dugan, David Bush, Rob Patsky, Jory Webb, Kelly Breckner, Nate Edison, and Wes Anderson. May the Force be with you.
You're listening to Flying Casual, a Star Wars podcast. Here's your host, Michael Canterbury.
Star Wars fam, casual fam, welcome to our 6th installment of the Casual Council. I am your host, Michael Canterbury. Join with me, the lovely Holly. Holly, welcome to the 6th installment of Casual Council.
Here we are.
Here we are. Our numbers are dwindling, Holly. And that's not because we've lost council members. We've actually had to deploy nearly half of our council out into the outer rim to attest to some, we're not really sure at the moment. We'll find out soon.
That's classified information, Michael.
Could be blurgs, could be, I don't know what it is that we're fighting out there, but we had to send half of the Jedi Council, which is concerning. If we lose half the council, I don't know what we're going to do.
I think it'll be fine. But why? I don't think that we would have sent them out to attack blurgs.
No? Even if the blurgs were possessed with the dark side?
Can you imagine blurgs possessed with the dark side?
No,
the
that would be terrifying.
Mandalorians would have to rope them in. They would be our only hope.
Let's hope they don't run into the Mandalorians, or we're going to have some trouble. We may be missing then permanently half of our council. But who we do have with us is our very own Luke Elder. Luke, how you doing, my friend? No blurg attacking for you tonight. You are inside.
Yeah, you guys are making me want to pop in some Ewok movie DVDs.
Let's go.
They're sitting over there in the drawer. I'm looking at the drawer. I hear them calling out, Blurg City.
Blurg City.
Well, Holly, now that I know that Luke has physical copies of the Ewok films, we might have to borrow those for trivia trials. We'll see.
I have never seen a single Ewok
Jesus.
film.
Okay. Luke, I may be over later to borrow those.
Watch party.
Watch party, that's what I'm talking about. And we may actually have to mail those copies out to our competitors so they can also watch the films. But our other council member who we have with us, Jory, also inside tonight. But Jory's been facing a lot of problems with storms, Holly. You know, it's looking like actually Camino, where Jory's been up in that state up north. Jory, can you hear us?
I can, Mike. How's it going?
How you doing, buddy? It's good here. It's drier here, but you've been facing some storms up there, I hear.
Yeah, we were talking earlier. It's like it's either a drought or a hurricane. Like it's there's no in between. So it's been pretty crazy.
No one, I think, wants to live on Camino other than the Kaminoans. Did I get that right? Kaminoans?
Yeah.
That's how I would say it.
That's what I'm talking about. Cloners. Depends on how big your pocketbook is. If there's a Star Wars phrasing, that's it. It's intense.
I mean, I was going to say, but I thought Jory was going to say.
That's okay. You got it to him first. Also phrasing. Just tossing phrasing softballs here on the 6th installment of the Casual Council. And folks, that's it. Literally, that's who we have right now. Rob, aka Kylo Ren, may be making an appearance. I think he's running a little late, but I do want to get to Rob's Star Wars story. This is his first council session. You may recall that Rob hopped in at the book club, did not read the book, but still had some good things to say. But luckily, this one, Holly, you do not have to have read a Star Wars novel. You just pretty much bring what you got.
That's right. No homework was required for this one.
No homework was required. We do typically require our Jedi Masters to go out there and do some homework every once in a while.
You know, we are forever learning.
Amen.
Lifetime learning here.
That's a nice life lesson there, Holly. So who knows, guys? Rob may show up. Kylo Ren may show up. We'll see what happens. But our other knights are occupied at this moment, and hopefully they'll be reporting in soon, or we're in deep, Holly.
Big problems.
Big problems, folks. So we're going to get Rob's story when he comes in here. But Holly, I read an interesting article today from Screen Rant. Screen Rant, I think, is the only media outlet right now even talking about Star Wars.
Tell me more.
Tell you more? Well, here's the thing. They actually did a ranking of Star Wars in a way that I never have really thought about Star Wars. Usually you rank Star Wars, you're like, that's my favorite movie. That's my favorite lightsaber scene. In this article, they actually ranked the movies 1 through 12 as the best climax or the best kind of ending to a movie, which I thought was pretty unique.
not as boring as my favorite movie, which we've done. So slam on
Everyone
us.
has done. But folks, I'm going to tell you right now, there's not going to be any Star Wars Episode 2 hate in this installment of Casual Counsel, because we don't hate the movie and we love it, especially that ending. So, Holly, you mind pulling up that article really quick?
I don't.
So, yeah, so you have 20 open tabs on your phone. I don't know if you can actually find
I know.
it.
My most recent one was about Mrs. Dalloway, so give me one
Mrs.
second.
Doubtfire?
Mrs. Dalloway?
I'm not sure. Is this embarrassing?
Michael doesn't know who Virginia Woolf is.
Guys, I live a simple life, okay? If it's not Star Wars, it's landscaping. If it's not landscaping, I'm probably sitting on the couch playing Episode 1 Racer on the
That's
PS4.
correct.
Well, enlighten me, Holly. I'm Dalloway. I mean, is this something I should know?
Just a character in a Virginia Woolf novel.
Okay.
Okay, fun fact.
Yeah.
Earlier, we're like sitting here like getting ready, and I got like a Facebook notification. I'm like,
Yeah.
what's this? My AP Lit teacher from senior year of high school tagged me in a post.
Okay.
He said, was talking about Virginia Woolf's Mrs. Dalloway with my wife. The movie The Hours came up, and I was reminded about my AP Lit class in 2008,
Wow.
2009. The amount of tears shed watching that in class, it was a high percentage. Can
Wow.
anyone confirm?
Well, the fact, Holly, that you were in high school in 2008 and 2009 couldn't be one. Probably going to have to confirm that age here soon. But it's also impressive that they remember you. I can only imagine if I went to my day, hey, it's Michael Cameron. Like, who? Were you either the nerd, the guy in orchestra, or the guy talking about Star Wars? Who are you again? I don't recall you.
I was just a really good student, Michael.
Well, that must be nice. Jory, you look like you were a good student. I mean, would your high school teachers recognize you at this point?
They do, but I also went to a school. I think my graduating class is like 89, and I live in the same town as all my old high school teachers. So, and I used to coach at the school. So yeah, I know all of them. Still see them to this day. But that, yeah, it's a little bit different of a situation over here.
Well, guys,
And being a good student, I was not as good of a student as I should have been. I got really good grades, but I should have been a way better student than I was. I was still to this day, kind of procrastination is not the answer.
that's okay, man. I mean, you got a lot on your plate, but Holly, I'm finding out that maybe I'm just not a valued member of my community. Is that what I'm hearing?
I don't think that's what you heard.
That's not what I heard.
No.
Okay, Luke, would you're about my age, exactly. No, we're not twins. I know, people mistake us often. Wow, just a couple handsome guys there. You guys twins? Actually, no, we're not twins. But Luke, would your high school teachers recognize that handsome face?
Yes, but probably only because my mom worked at the school up until like a month ago, and she retired. So
Okay.
they would kind of just know me through that, probably.
Well, you didn't have the long locks back then, right? I mean, you were high and tight.
No, the hair's been in different phases. So I don't know if they'd recognize me on sight, but the name they would get, I think.
The Elder Wand. The Elder One, maybe. They may know Luke for his love of Lord of the Rings, that's for sure. But different podcast, Luke. Different podcast. Holly, but okay, so you erased what appeared to be 20 tabs on your phone, and you actually pulled up the article. So now we're on topic.
Okay,
again.
now we're on the right movie.
Okay, we're on the right movie. So we got 12 movies, Holly. I mean, we're including Solo. We're including Rogue One. We're including all the Skywalker saga.
And I read through this. We'll go through the list, to get your guys' opinions because this is interesting. I read through it and I was like, no. I think like the entire list. I was like, nah.
Well, this is gonna be an interesting discussion.
Not my list.
Not my whatever.
Sure.
President, Star Wars, Luke Skywalker, whatever you want to say.
All the above.
Absolutely. So we have 12 movies. They even include the Clone Wars movie from 2008, which was interesting. And it just so happens to grace the number 12 spot, Ollie.
Which is the worst
list.
ending.
The worst ending.
Okay, so their reasoning is Dooku and Anakin get into a duel, which is fun.
Yeah.
While Ahsoka delivers Rhoda the Hutt to Jabba.
Yeah.
The whole movie is forgettable from start to finish.
Well, yeah. And so you got to realize you need some context because it was. I was there in 2008. I remember walking out of the Mount Vernon premiere theaters and being like, what the hell just happened? What did I see? Should be expecting more? Jabba the Hutt has a baby? Like, what the hell is going on? Luke, I believe you also saw the film back in the day, and without any understanding that there was going to be a Clone Wars or that this was going to make more sense. In the movie alone, walking out of that theater, what were your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm thinking now, it was an interesting choice to launch it as a movie and then go into the series, when the movie was really just like 3 episodes of the TV show, or 4 maybe, shown, without interruption in a row. And I'm curious now, like, I understand they wanted to kind of create buzz and then and then continue to follow this on TV. Yeah. But it took some time for them to get their feet under them, and I think it's into like season 2 and really season 3 where the series really like finds its feet and becomes the Clone Wars that we're all nuts about. Yeah. So it maybe would have been interesting if they built up to like doing most of the first season and then do the movie sort of as the season finale almost. That might have been an interesting way to go about it.
That's kind of what we wanted out of the Clone Wars, right? We've seen the last 4 episodes was the Mandalorian arc, and that was more theatrical than I think what we saw in the theaters in 2008 with the ending of the Clone Wars. So that would totally make sense. Jory, how about you, man? Were you? Here's the other thing. Luke and Jory were also pretty cool back in this time. So I don't know if Jory actually was going, to a theater to watch a nerd film that was animated. If he was, I'm assuming he was alone and told his friends, hey, I'm going to see, I don't know, The Godfather or something. Jory, were you at the theater watching this thing?
I was not in the theater watching it. We've talked about this before. It was a time of, I wasn't really into Star Wars. And I've watched it since. Kind of struggled through it a little bit. Yeah. Kind of how I'm struggling a little bit with the beginning of Clone Wars right now. Yeah. But no, I get what they're saying, but I still think it serves a purpose. I think that it's a decent movie. Not something that I guess once again with this list, we haven't really had time to really go over what our list would be, and I think it's fair to say it could be lower in the list. But I can't say it's definitely the worst.
Yeah, and it's good though that it's at the beginning of Clone Wars, because you probably watched a couple episodes of Clone Wars, which is probably 40 minutes worth of Clone Wars, and then all of a sudden the movie hits. So you kind of got a nice, like, unfiltered look at the movie itself and can probably judge it kind of on its own, which is good. That's good. Mm-hmm. And yeah, so maybe the purpose was to get it out there that Star Wars was coming out in a different way, right? Because 2008, I was in college, but like. I was on YouTube and stuff like that, but it's not like Facebook was at its infancy. Like, there wasn't a whole lot of like online presence to say like, hey, Star Wars is something different now. It's like, it probably didn't cost a lot to make that couple of episodes into a movie, and let's just spit it out in the theater so people know that Star Wars is here. Yeah.
I mean, wasn't MySpace hopping with Star Wars though?
Oh, buddy, I had a top
or Vivo.
I don't even know what Vivo probably. Is that the music video stuff? Because I was into that stuff.
Wait, no, I'm thinking of Bebo or B. I don't know. There was another one that was really pretty off the wall that it lasted probably about 6 months and then just died. So.
Well, Holly was on Zanga, I think, for a while, right?
That's a blogging website.
Oh, okay.
I was not blogging about Star Wars in 2005.
No, you were also one of those cool people. I think I was the one who wasn't cool in high school, so that's awesome. And it's continued on through my adult years, which is fantastic. So I think we all kind of agree that maybe that's not a bad placement, I think, Holly, right? How about you? I think
that's probably like the one that I agreed with the most on this list, because it says the whole movie is very forgettable. I can't even tell you one thing that happens in that movie. So exactly. I concur that is forgettable.
Absolutely.
But also I wonder if that movie had, like, if they had done an animated Clone Wars movie today, I think it would have been different. I think it would have been a lot different, and I think that probably it would have fell at a different spot. We don't really have a lot of animated Star Wars movies that were released in theaters. So I would actually be kind of curious to see what they would do.
And I hope they're not burned by this, because the last 4 episodes of the Clone Wars were pretty epic and were more cinematic than this, like we said. So I hope they're not burned by the fact that, releasing an animated Star Wars movie may not be the best move, but I think they can get away with it if they do it right.
it.
Make a Dark Disciple movie.
Yes, maybe they will. Who knows? Like, stick to the book, obviously. And that's what I don't understand, because it seems like Star Wars fans are kind of like, well, we already got that story. But it's like, what about all the other fan, groups like Lord of the Rings or like Harry Potter, Twilight? Like, they had books too, and they still got films about it. So it's like, why is it different?
Were they great films? Debatable.
Every single one of the Twilight films. Well, I haven't even seen the last one, so I don't know. I couldn't tell you.
I put Twilight on one time, and
Monkey.
right, Michael fell asleep in like 2 seconds.
I did.
He was like, "We watched Twilight."
I absolutely fell asleep. Yeah, I totally still haven't seen that. So we were finally joined by Kylo Ren himself.
What's going on? I don't have my mask on tonight.
That's okay. That's okay. We were just talking about. We're going to get to your Star Wars story here in a second, but we might actually jump out of this discussion and get back to it. But we're looking at the ranking the films by their climax, like the finale kind of to the films. We're reading a Screen Rant article right now looking at all 12 films, including the Clone Wars, including Rogue One, Solo, and it's ranked them from, worst to greatest, and we're just at number 12 right now. So we just kind of started. We're going to get back to that in a second, Holly.
Yeah.
Now we got Rob on here. It's a Saturday
what's
night.
up?
This is Rob's first casual council. It's a small group tonight, Rob. So half the council we have sent to the unknown regions. We don't know what they're battling. Could be blurgs. Could be who knows. Could I don't know, Holly. We're not certain. That's why it's the unknown regions. But so small council tonight. But what we do with all of our newest Jedi Masters, or Jedi Knights, I should say, is get their Star Wars story. So you're a huge fan. It's obvious from our interactions, your social media. Obviously, you're a fan of Kylo Ren. Like, where did it start, and what continues to drive that love to this day?
All right. So, this goes back. Me being 42, this is one of those things. I mean, so I'm a little, but I was born kind of when the new movies started. There's a lot of fireworks going on. That's kind of why I delayed coming in.
He's in a war zone.
Yeah.
He's in that region.
Yeah, it's going to sound like Yavin 4 here in a minute. Get to the bonk.
That's
So I had to come outside because actually my dog was flipping out. So, it's crazy. But
okay.
All right, so back to it. So when I started out as a Star Trek person. My dad always watched Star Trek, and I used to just always, it was on regular shows. So, I loved Spock, always a Kirk fan. I mean, you can't, who can hate Captain Kirk? Like,
absolutely right.
Yeah.
Nobody.
He's so suave. He used to sit in that throne and be like, hey, people bring him drinks and stuff. He should have been wearing a pimp ring. So, so that's where it kind of started. And then my friends started talking about Star Wars. So I said, I asked my dad, I was like, what's Star Wars about? He said it's kind of sci-fi, but he's like a Chuck Norris dude. So I was getting Death Wish. I was getting Chuck Norris movies, Charles Bronson. I'm getting all these sorts of things. Like, we went and seen all the Van Damme movies from like the late 80s to early 90s, man, like Sudden Death, whatever. We've seen them all. That's all he ever did. Double Impact, seen that the opening weekend. But he was never like into Star Wars. So I had to it was about my friends telling me.
Yeah.
So finally, my dad was like, all right, well, I'll get you some, the first one. And I watched it and I was like, all right, that was cool. And then you get to 5. Yeah. And then you see, and before what's that?
No, go ahead.
So before I get to 5, my friends already are like, dude, you have no idea what's going to happen. And I'm like, oh my God, like, really? And then, of course, you find out Vader's Luke's father.
Yeah.
And then I did, of course, Return of the Jedi, which for years has always been like my number one, because who didn't love Luke during all those times? And you're talking about climatic buildups. I mean, that's one of them at the end when the way they cue in that music. We'll talk about that,
Oh yeah. We will.
Oh yeah. So, I watched Star Wars over and over again. I actually have the gold collector's edition from back, whatever. It's up in the attic. It's crazy how you find things years later. So that's always been something of me. When the prequels came out, however, that's when kind of my oldest daughter, who's now 22, was getting into Star Wars. So Nintendo 64 time, GameCube time, you're getting Shadows of the Empire, you're getting the whole, like, Rogue Leader, like you guys were just talking about all that stuff, that whole timeline, the way they did Rogue Leader, starting it off at the end of episode 4 and then doing all the major fights all the way to the climatic battle at the end, it was amazing. And so again, going in the Shadows of the Empire kind of left in that little gap right there between 5 and 6. So so that was like what you had. So then my daughter, of course, this was episode 1 Racer, and this was also Jedi Power Battles for the regular PlayStation. I played that game forever. And how many of you played that game?
I didn't. I did not. Nah. We were poor folks. I didn't have any access to much.
Oh, come on. So it was really hard to play because if you left your person behind, but you got levels, you get different combinations. Obi-Wan Kenobi was my favorite character in that. And of course, they had Mace Windu, Plo Koon, and Qui-Gon, and then Q, the girl, whatever. So, during those years, that's when the prequels come out. So then at that time, also right before the prequels came out, Tinseltown up here did episode 4. So then we got to see all the ones going up in the theaters. And that was the first time that I actually ever got to see Star Wars episodes 4, 5, 6 in the theater leading up to the prequels. So then it was like, I had my daughter Ivory, and she was all into it. So we do 1, 2, and 3. And of course, my stepson Tyler, he came along when he got a little older. I think that was 4, 2, and 3. And that's where it kind of did it. So I watched all these. And when they finally told me, like, I'm playing the video games, playing Battlefront 1, playing Star Wars Galaxy, which I just played for years about that game. And so Star Wars, after my friends finally got me into it, has found a way into my life all these years through either a video game, a book, or just the movies.
That's what it's impressed me the most with you. You are the definition of a Star Wars sponge. Like I mean, everyone loves the movies. You're deep in the legend stuff. You're reading the new canon stuff now. You're even listening to us talking about the comic books, but the games that's a huge part of the storytelling for you. You are just a Star Wars sponge, and that's very unique. I mean, a lot of us enjoy different aspects. You literally take all of it and just soak it up.
Yeah, I mean, that's why when people argue, and that's what makes our group so good, is when these people are arguing about it, it doesn't matter. Just give me content. That's all I want.
That's right.
Just give me more. Story after story, after passage, after quote, after sausage, after this. It's all there.
Oh, it absolutely is. It's and that you bring a lot of energy to it, and that's what I love. Like, your passion is absolutely there. It never fades, and it doesn't matter if you didn't enjoy a film that much. You're still coming back to it, and you come for it, like you said, for the stories. You're like myself. You devour the stories. Some of it, there's some weird shit in the EU. Like, there's some weird stories. Like, there's weird things happen. Like, it's just, but you still embrace it and accept it, and there's always going to be good stuff to come, and that's another thing about Star Wars. We always know we're going to get something. I mean, I don't think Star Wars is ever going to die, and so you're just always awaiting for the next best story, and that's what I love about you, man. And you bring so much energy to the group and this podcast and stuff, and that's why I'm excited to have you on this kind of stuff, because especially Trials. I mean, Jesus, I cannot wait to get Robin Trials and get a little bit of attitude into the league.
It's gonna be a little while.
I can't wait.
I might have to wear my Macho Man outfit for that one. They might have to go, I have to deal with the Macho.
I'm absolutely down. If as long as you got a writing utensil or something, you can wear whatever you want.
Yeah.
But dude, that's so awesome. Yeah, go ahead.
it's so, you know, that's where, of course, we're playing these video games, and Molly finds bombastic. So then we're doing all this stuff. Now, you know, Battlefront 2 comes out. We're kills of the week. We're doing kills of the week. I'm trying to make it on there. I'm just slicing fool after fool. And just like I said, Lifesavers, the body, just there was nothing. And you got the story with Aiden. And now you're like, now you're getting, you know, the end of Return again. Now you're like, oh, shit. You know?
From a completely different perspective, things that I never expected it. So why don't we learn more about the Empire? And it's like, it makes so much sense, and I'm glad we're getting it.
Yeah. And then Molly fell in love with Rey immediately. Yeah. So it was easy to step right into 7, step right into 8, and step right into 9 with no matter what happened, like you said earlier, expunge, I was going to take it. Yeah. I didn't have to. Of course, last time I asked, like, okay, what about Palpatine? We all talked about the digits missing and things like that. Yeah. But I still accepted it because as the movies, when me and Molly were talking about it, if you just take the movies and just keep the movies there and only think of the movies, you're so much happier. You don't have to, if you'd ever read anything ever in your life, anybody, and they just watched the movies and graded the movies on, I bet they would have a better perspective than most of these people that try to read the EU, stick to the EU, and try to watch those movies. And that's what always drove me, was all of that. It's
awesome that you have that perspective, and that's a perspective that I think a lot of that our listeners have in the group, because so many of those people say, well, that's not my Star Wars. That's not what George Lucas would have done. Well, I hate to spoil it for people, but George Lucas didn't give two shits about the EU. That wasn't his story either. Like, no, he didn't like half of those stories. So it's just a whole new perspective. It's a whole new story about Palpatine, and whether you love it or not, it's different. And whether that differs from what you read in the expanded universe, that it is what it is. But people mix so much with, that's not what George Lucas would have done. But you don't know what George would have done. We have no idea. So allow other creative people to play in this world, and you are going to get better Star Wars stories. It's just, there's creative people out there. He's not the only creative person. So let's let more come into this who have different experiences as George. George was a freaking, West Coast, probably well-to-do kid, didn't have a whole lot of experience with a lot of different things, and now we've got different people in Star Wars and Disney. I think it's great to have different perspectives, Holly. But that's what I love about you, dude. You bring so much energy to it, and you accept things for what they are, and you're always looking for the next story, and it's freaking awesome. And I can't remember what I was going to ask you.
Fallen Order, maybe?
That's still not finished, but you'll be pleased that we did recently purchase episode 1 Racer, so we'll talk to you about that here.
I did see that.
Saw the video.
Some good times were had for our Patreon folks. So that's it's a great story, and I know it's going to continue on, man. And something I do want to at some point is talk with you about Rey, because I actually kind of watched a video. It kind of rubbed me the wrong way. Holly knows what I'm talking about. I watched a Star Wars theory video talking about Rey and how they, people call her Mary Sue and things like that. And so at some point, maybe not tonight, but at some other time, I want to get your perspective on another council or something like that about Rey, and like why your daughter loves her so much. And like, I think a lot of people out there calling Rey Mary Sue and all these things need that kind of discussion, need that perspective from someone who actually appreciates the character, appreciates her progression and her story.
I would also think that it's important to point out the majority of the people calling Rey and Mary Sue are men.
That's absolutely
who call themselves Star Wars fans but hate on the female Star Wars characters. I think that's an important thing to note. Because those characters, I mean, those are important. Like we see with Rob, Rey was so important for his daughter, and I think that these characters make really great role models. And for you to sit there and be like, "Oh, well, she's not in my Star Wars. She's a Mary Sue. She's a boring character." Come on, grow up.
No, that's absolutely true. Absolutely true.
That was my soapbox.
I gotta say, Rey. A lot of the kid books that she's read coming up to that, being 9 now, it's all focused on Rey.
Yeah.
So her perspective, when we were talking about our 5 EU characters and things like that, her perspective is different because the books she reads are probably about 80% about Rey, because that's what they put out, of course, because she's the character.
Absolutely. And that's, I love that. I love that we're getting different perspectives, Holly, and it's not just, you know, a bunch of 30-something-year-old men saying, she doesn't have any story. She's a terrible character because she never failed. I'm sorry. There's a lot of failure in that sequel trilogy.
And if Rey's not relatable to you, then maybe you're a boring person.
Slam. Wow. You're not calling anyone boring, right, Holly?
Maybe
I mean, she climbs.
Or maybe you are. She does. So we're going to talk about that at length at another point. But Casual Fam, I'm sure you know a lot about Rob already, and you probably just learned a little bit more. And you're going to continue to learn more about this man as we go on and on with our council sessions. But, you know, I could talk to you for 2 hours, you know, or more about your story. So we're going to save some. We're going to save some. Yeah. Episodes to come and discussions to come. We're just going to give people a little bit of a tease. But, Holly, we're going back to our 12 film.
That's right.
The worst to best finales, climaxes, what do you want to call it? So we started out with the Clone Wars, the feature film, number 12. What's our number 11 according to Screen Rant?
Okay.
And we're going to see if we agree.
According to Screen Rant, the next worst ending in a Star Wars movie is Solo.
Ooh.
This one I don't agree with.
Yeah.
It's I'm going to go to Jory first because I know Jory's seen the film. Jory seems like a kind of shoot from the hip kind of guy, if I'm being honest. He's suave. He's got a lot of confidence. He seems like a Han Solo man. Jory, is it right that Solo's down there at number 11 when we're talking about finales?
Man, I don't know. That's a tough one. One of the movies has to come down to 11, and to be honest, you know, once again, we're shooting from the hip right now with this list. I mean, I could see where maybe, you know, it's not like a super fantastical ending, you know, and maybe that's why they ranked it lower. Honestly, I don't know on that one. You know, love the movie. It's, you know, definitely middle of the pack movie for me. But yeah, as far as the ending, I guess I could possibly see why they put it lower.
And I think I agree. I don't know if it's an 11, but I get what they're saying because I think they talk about the ending kind of being overshadowed by the Darth Maul connection, which is cool. But I think what for me, like I was digging Enfys Nest, and then I feel like I wanted more of like what they were doing and their connection to the actual rebellion. It was a nice tease, but the reveal was, you know, it's awesome that she's this young gal that, you know, picked up the torch of her mother, and I think that's freaking awesome. But it just was so random, and I was like, okay, like we need more about this. And I don't know with, you know, Solo's success if we're going to get any more story from that. Rob, what are you thinking? I know you're a Solo fan. Is 11 a just number for the finale?
I guess if you don't want, like, if you think, like you said, the Darth Maul surprise wasn't big to you, but for like me, I mean, what other movie right now would you put? I mean, I put the Clone Wars movie. That's 12. That's really good. Yeah. All right. So like you move down. I mean, like what movie really ends that would just be like a ho hum ending? And I would think like maybe Last Jedi would pop in there, maybe.
Yeah.
Or but outside of that, I can't see 9 being there. I can't see 7 being there. I can't see 6 being there. 5 being there. 4 maybe, but not 3. 2 and 1. You're burning Qui-Gon.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, that's sad. I guess that would be the most sad one. So I guess if you want to be sad, throw that at 11. But other than that, maybe Last Jedi. Solo could go up. But
Solo could go up. Listen.
Yeah, come on, Holly.
This is huge.
Get up on that soapbox again.
Kira is still out there on her way to Dathomir.
Yep. Come on. Oh my
God. To
God.
find Darth Maul.
You're right.
Excuse me for thinking that is a cool ending, and I want more of that. I do agree that I would love more Enfys Nest because her story, I think, would be fantastic, and I think she would be another one of those strong female characters that we need to know more about. I mean, her whole family. Yeah. But if we're talking about just the ending, I don't feel it was overshadowed by the Darth Maul reveal. And that's just me. And I'm a huge fan of Darth Maul. So maybe I'm a little biased. But aren't these lists always biased?
I think you're the biggest fan of Darth Maul. And Holly, here's I'm not mad about the placement of 11 here, but here's why I know that I'm unfairly treating this finale. Are you ready for this?
Okay.
And it's going to be crazy because I too want more Kira. I too want her going to Dathomir, and who the hell knows? Maybe learning from witches. I don't know. She's out there doing, Terras Kasi and learns witchcraft. I mean, she would be the most wicked, like, heroine, villain. I don't know what she is at that point. Yeah. But I want that. I want to see her with Maul. I want to see how she's utilized. I want more emphasis.
Okay, so what I feel like I'm missing
You're missing something because it's the success of the film itself that tells me I'm never going to get that story.
Which is a freaking bummer.
It's not fair. That's why I'm saying this is unreasonable. Yeah. It's illogical. I don't know why it's making me feel like it because I love everything about that. But now I feel like I know I'm never going to get that story. It sucks. It sucks because it wasn't a technical box success.
You guys, we know that we've gone years in a Star Wars. So I think that anything could happen.
But it absolutely could. Absolutely could. It sounds like Rob is in the I don't even know on.
Yes, I'm trying to.
If you can't, unless you're talking, you might have to mute that. It sounds like some. I don't even know.
Shots fired.
Doing that right now.
It was definitely on. I'll tell you that right now.
Can you imagine if Rob just heard?
No, I don't. I don't.
I'm trying to figure out how they stop now. I'm trying to figure out how to do this. Does anybody know how to stop this?
Let me try. I might have to. Let me see. Oh, it sounds like they stopped actually. So we're good. Oh, you figured it out. Okay, Jory figured it out. Okay, we'll get you back, Rob, when we come to you. But man, it sounded like hell was raining down on Rob. I hope he's okay. If we lose connection, I'm a little worried that one of those fireworks went rogue, Holly.
We still have an image on him. We can see him. We got eyes on Rob.
If we see it go dark, we're going to send out a search party. But we don't have many Jedi Knights here on the council right now. So, Luke, I want to talk to you, buddy, because we're fans of Solo, and Screen Rant has it in here at 11 as a finale. I just gave probably what was not a coherent explanation as to why I think that's a decent area for it, because I love so much about the ending. I love that Kira is probably out there on Dathomir learning some witchcraft with Darth Maul, and I think we're going to learn more about Enfys Nest. It seems like Han Solo still has some adventures to go before he makes himself present on Tatooine. But is 11 a nice place for the finale there for Solo?
Well, I have a bit of a clarification question. In this whole article, what is... Because there's usually like a climax to a film and then kind of, the ramp down epilogue type part. So they're talking about just that like sort of most exciting conclusive part.
It seems
and
so.
Not the...
Yeah, Holly.
It's unclear.
Okay.
Yep.
This is why I disagree with some of their lists, because in some of the rankings that they give, they do it solely based off of the climax of the film. To me, I mean, the climax is not the end of the film.
Yeah,
right.
And so, I mean, there's other stuff that happens after the climax that should factor into whether how you would rank the film. And then in other rankings, they are basing it solely on the actual end scene.
Okay.
Yeah. It's kind of unfair at times because
because
straight endings like the Luke Kylo Ren confrontation in Last Jedi, but they don't even talk about Rey and Kylo fighting the Praetorian Guard, which was really epic. So you're right. This is they're not really clear about how they're ranking them. I guess they call it a climax, but you're right, that could take place midway through the movie.
Right. The Solo sort of climax there on Savareen was one of the more unique ones where you think it's building to like a big fight, and then it kind of changes to a negotiation and a serious talk, and not a ton of action, and you get the great sort of final confrontation between Beckett and Solo, which I think is really emotional, and it's about Solo like learning how to cut it in this cutthroat world that he's found himself in, and is like really like the beautiful moment, even though they're killing each other basically. So that to me is really powerful, and I love Solo. So it's always, like I said, difficult to rank Star Wars things for me. It's like ranking children. So I understand like how some of the things that happen in the more epilogue phase of Solo kind of throw people off.
Yeah.
The whole Darth Maul inclusion, I think for the wider audience who wasn't as dialed in as we are, was kind of confusing and weird for people.
Yeah.
So I understand how that can kind of like throw off the feelings of the ending in general. But if you kind of look at just some of the Enfys Nest and like I said, Kira like being badass and taking out Dryden Voss, and then the Beckett Solo stuff, I think is all really good.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for us was, hearing that she's going to meet, like you said, I think that's what Screen Rant said too. Like it kind of, Darth Maul kind of takes you out like, wait, what? How is he connected to any of this? So yeah, some of those non-sweaties, they really don't understand what's going on. But to hear that she was maybe going to Dathomir, it's like, okay, we know what happens there. So, I mean, is she going to tap into that witchcraft? I don't know, but she would be insanely powerful at that point.
She would be.
Not that she isn't, but it would be insane. So I guess we'll just say you probably think it could be higher. We don't even give it a number unless you feel obligated to, but we'll just say it could be higher.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Okay. Number 10.
Come on. Here we go.
Which we have been critiqued for, but it appears it is not only us.
Get out of here.
Episode 2, Attack of the Clones.
Attack of the Clones.
For the reason of...
A podcast favorite.
Clearly. Also, they note this is notoriously always near the bottom of the live action movie rankings.
That's not us. That's Screen Rant, Holly. That's not this podcast. That is Screen Rant.
So we heard that the final duels with Dooku are decent.
Yeah.
Even great at points, but not the best.
Yeah.
The clones turning up was pretty great, but compared to the other finales, Attack of the Clone lacked emotional power.
Come on now. I was gonna go to Jory, but Jory is MIA. I hope he's okay. I don't think the blurgs have reached him just yet. I'm gonna start with Luke, and then I'm gonna go to Rob. Luke, episode 2 is up there for you. I mean, when we did the rankings, I mean that was top 5 material, I believe. And this podcast agrees. I mean, this is a podcast favorite film.
Luke is excited about this one.
Now I get what they're saying, Luke. I get what they're saying. Okay, if people don't love that Yoda whips out his little laser sword, and I call it a little laser sword because it is. It's little and it's green. You know what? If you see that, Holly, probably consult a physician. But if he whips out his little green laser sword and uses the Force to do it. No, we've never seen that. It was epic. Who knew Yoda could flip around like that? But the fight itself lacked something.
Emotional power.
Something. Luke, am I wrong?
Everybody's wrong about episode 2 every time. Yeah, I think it came in number 6 for me on the rankings, if I remember, of the 9. So I clearly rate it higher than most people do. For me, the best part about the ending of episode 2 is that Across the Stars plays throughout sort of the last scenes, which is one of the best songs there is in Star Wars. But that's more an epilogue phase, so not exactly the climax. I love the Dooku Yoda showdown. I know it kind of gets dried a little bit, like Yoda's just flipping all over the place. You don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
I love to finally see Yoda in action. And lacks like emotional power. It's the start of the fall of the Republic. Begun the Clone Wars has.
Let's go.
I mean, I guess if you just evaluate the movie on its own, maybe you could say it lacks that. But when you again are deep into it like we are, and you see the Clone Wars series and you see it all falls, and then Revenge of the Sith following, I love it when you see the Star Destroyers taken off.
Great point.
At the end, the troops amassing, and you see, Bail Organa there is observing it, and he was against, the militarization.
Great freaking point.
Versus the people who are like, well, this kind of just happened. We have to deal with it now. That's all powerful for me. But again, if I could rank them all number 1, I would. So.
It's making me want to watch it again.
Holly, I was gonna say, the man speaks reason. You know what? He's the voice of reason in the Star Wars community, and I love that about him. And I gotta know. I mean, is the man right?
I mean, I'm not here to like.
She's not here to shut Luke down.
To drag Luke and his favorite movies or endings.
What about what are the good things for you there in that finale, in that climax, I should say?
I don't know. I feel like I need to rewatch it.
That's fair. No,
I need to take what Luke has said in his defense of why he loves the movie so much, and I need to bring that with me to my rewatch.
You forget those last couple of seconds even where Yoda says begun the Clone Wars have, and like you said, seeing Palpatine, who's orchestrated it all and hit the army before him, and then Bail Organa there, a man who fights this oppression later on, or this army that they've built, but he's right there watching it all transpire. Jory, we're on number 10, and they've placed episode 2 there, and I know you're a fan. So did Screen Rant get it wrong, or is that proper? If it's not, if you need a higher, what about that climax of the movie do you love?
Definitely. I actually heard a lot of what Luke was just saying, and I agree completely. There's a lot to that, especially when you start getting a little bit deeper into it, into the psyche of everything and how it's affecting Anakin and. Just a lot to that climax itself. So I'm just gonna have to say I agree with Luke. I don't know, because I was just trying to rank them myself, and I probably do have it lower. As far as like an 8 or a 9, I think right now.
Yeah.
It's hard to rank them all, on a whim. So I think they're close. I think what's most frustrating about it is their explanations, because it almost seems like their explanations seem to have to downplay the reason why it's there.
Yeah.
It's not an explanation of, oh, hey, I love this film, but there's just so many more that are, that strike with us better. It's this is a terrible movie, and and this is why, and so there's just so much of that in Star Wars, and so I think it kind of makes you just kind of turn away from the article in itself.
Yeah, no, that's fair, and this is just one person's point of view, and it's that's why we talk about these things, because this is what a lot of general Star Wars fans are reading, and it's. Pisses off some. They couldn't agree with it more. Who knows? But Rob, you're a fan of them prequels. I know you were there in 2002. So
of course,
and that seems a little disrespectful.
I mean, it is where it is. I did say that this was one of 2 that could be at 11,
True.
And it's not because it was because of the end. And when you guys brought up Bail Organa, that his look on his face when he's seen that happening.
Yeah.
If you want drama, that's what you want. But most people want action. And the action for Yoda when he jumped out in my theater here in Erie, PA, was laughter. It was laughter because it was funny, because like he said, you didn't know he was going to pull out those moves.
Yeah. Well, I'll say this. They use those same moves in Battlefront, the original. And even the newer Battlefront, let's be honest, you cannot function with the man. I can't use I flip and I die in a couple of hits from blasters.
Yep.
He's useless on the field, in my opinion.
Stop hating on Yoda.
I'm terrible at Battlefront, so I need to disclose that.
I can work the Yoda in that game, but like if you're talking like when you brought up the blasters with the large scale, like you can only suck in so many blasters, and if your Yoda isn't
crazy.
But anyway, if on a battlefield you're getting shot from every direction, it's not going to help. And if you catch a rocket in the hand, it's going to hurt.
That's right.
So you're right about that. So I guess it's where it is, and I do agree with what Jory said, and I agree with what Luke said. Like, you can't say it any better than that if you make it the film as a whole.
Yeah.
But it's one of my worst Star Wars films, only because it's the one that you'll see someone tune out of faster that isn't into it, because the love story. And that's the only reason why I can really think that would be down that low.
He's on to something, because when we were having this conversation, I was thinking, I was like, this is the one Star Wars movie that just like I cannot pay attention to.
Yeah.
Like if I'm gonna say,
because you hate love.
I hate it. I don't hate it, but I don't come to Star Wars for a love story. I say as I pick Dark Disciple for the next book club book, but that aside, I don't know. And I'm not really like big into the big action either. So like maybe I'm just a confused Star Wars fan and I don't know what I want.
Maybe you're a Star Trek fan. Rob,
no way.
Need you the way. So I agree with everything everyone said, and I think there's merit and where it's at, but also like Luke, they don't call him the original chosen one to begin with, and I say the original chosen one, Ollie, because that was Luke Skywalker. But the man of reason is speaking a lot of logic about episode 2, and I love him for it, and he makes fantastic points why it should be higher.
Well, I'll tell you what number 9 is.
Come on.
Episode 9.
Episode
is number 9.
The Rise of Skywalker. And I'm going to go out on a limb and speak here in the beginning and say I think it should be lower.
Like lower, like 11?
Probably.
I can see that. Guys,
I was confused by everything that was happening.
I really liked the movie in general. I think you guys remember that from my list that I made. But the ending, no. First of all, the nerve to have Rey be a Palpatine. No, thank you.
Come on.
See?
Come on.
And secondly, the freaking kiss. Can we not have that?
Holly, it was confusing. I was confused. Why are they kissing? But here's the thing: if we're saying the climax is Ben Solo on those pieces of the Death Star and his father's behind him, and he just says Ben,
and that's a great moment.
And I'm in tears. If that's the climax, bump it up to top 5.
Right.
Because one of the top moments in Star Wars.
Mm-hmm. But if we're talking about the climax being Rey laying on her back, watching every single person that she loves die, and she just lays there, I'm bored.
And for me, I know the Emperor, he's powerful. It was such a weird ending with, her just deflecting it. We've seen that before. I thought it would be a little more interesting. It really wasn't for me. Jory, I got to come to you for some reason, man. Am I wrong that it should be deeper?
I mean, I think we're on 2 different wavelengths here. So, so I actually have it. So I just did a quick ranking for myself, and I have it ranked at number 4.
Let's go.
And the reason being is, did you guys see Endgame?
Oh, I love Endgame.
Oh, you loved Endgame. You loved the climax of Endgame. It is word for word, like almost the exact same thing in Rise of Skywalker, that is in an Endgame. I mean, if you just start like putting parallels, and I don't even know if anybody did an article on this. Like I hope somebody did. Like just like type that into Google, and maybe there is an article. It's like almost the exact same thing. And Endgame, just went up for over $2 billion at the box office. So I mean, it did pretty all right. Yeah. But like for me, what did I do include Ben Solo, talking to or Kylo talking to Han, and then that redemption. I do include that into the climax, when I think about it, and I think about basically Ben Solo's whole return to the light as a part of that climax, and that's what really helps it for me. And then that whole arc into the final battle, and I get what you guys are saying, and I understand Holly, with the her being a Palpatine and things like that. Like I definitely I get why people don't like reasonings behind the movie, but if you take it in a climax, for me, as a whole, that whole ending battle, I really enjoyed it, and like I said, I have it ranked at number 4 for myself.
I always say this. I thought Babu Frick popping up out of it. I thought that was freaking. You know what I'm saying? There were great moments. There were great highlights in that film for me. Holly, we walked out blown away.
Oh, I love the movie.
Loved it, and it's just that ending. I was so confused, and I mean, Rey, flaring up that laser sword there at the end was pretty sick, and that once again it made me want to see more, and I feel like once again I'm never going to get that story, which really sucks. Jory.
So, and I was kind of refraining from saying this until now, Or you know what? No, I'll just save this until we do the next two, and then I'll give you my opinion on why this article sucks. But after you give the next two, then I'll tell you why this article sucks.
Okay, phrasings all around. Rob, you're a fan of the sequels. They wrap this one up with the Rise of Skywalker, and this climax. Are you digging a number 9 ranking for it?
I think it could be higher, definitely. You go back. I mean, again, for me, when it comes back to the movies, what force powers were used in other movies that looked so much different, so much cooler, that would relate to the EU? Yeah. And when Palp shoots that in the air, and it just shocks everybody. That's like, what?
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. So there's not so much of a lightsaber fight other than, Kylo Ren dispatching the Knights of Ren really fast, which was kind of weak. And then at the same time, I think people were turned off by the kiss, but overall, when you get that end of that feeling of part 4, and she lights up the lightsabers, buries the other, it's not bad. But I think they put it in the 9 position because it's 9. And sometimes that happens when you do Star Wars. You're like, well, at this point, if it's 7, it's 7.
They may have done that here because we're getting very close to that point, actually, Holly. I think they do it in the next couple. But Luke, I remember going to this movie at your first viewing and looking at you, turning over and looking at Luke's reaction to all this. And Holly, I'm going to say mixed emotions.
I'm going to say no emotion.
No emotion. Luke, is a number 9 ranking proper?
Yeah, I haven't sat down and gone through the whole list myself. But if I did, it would probably end up 10, 11 for me. And it should be no surprise because I think when we did our 1 through 9 rankings, it was 9 out of 9 for me. As a movie, not to say there aren't parts I love. Like Jory was saying, kind of including the Kylo to Ben transition as the climax would add to it. I don't know if I can count that as part of the climax because of where it falls, but to me that's some of the best parts of the movie. That and the scene with Han, which Michael cries over every time. Those are powerful. The stuff with Palpatine for me kind of falls flat. I do really like the calling on the Jedi of the past portion of it. But the battle with Palpatine falls a little flat for me. I do like the last moments between Ben and Rey. I like that there are no words spoken, but it conveys a lot, and you understand what is going on between the two characters and the connection and the loss that they feel and the sacrifice that Ben ultimately makes so that Rey can go on. I thought that was really well done, but that to me is almost in the sort of epilogue phase where you've come down from the high. So for me, in terms of if I think of climax and the battle on Exegol, a lot of that falls flat for me, and my favorite portions are kind of in the transition phase, like we were talking about earlier with Kylo to Ben transition.
It's a great point, and it like another great moment, like Leia going to get her son. They had unused footage of Leia. Yet that moment where it probably wasn't even Leia walking to lay down was the most impactful, one of the most impactful, probably the second most impactful moment in that movie for me, Holly. It wasn't even Carrie Fisher probably, yet laying down, tapping into the Force. I'm going to get my son. Enough's enough. I'm going to get him. I'm going to save him. Those were great moments. And I was saying this for a long time after I saw this movie. This movie, if you make this a 2-parter, just like they have every other goddamn franchise and all fandom, make 2-parter, it could have been the most epic ending in all of If you could have added more story in here, we could have got more time with these characters and understood a little more what the hell is Exegol, like what are the Sith doing here, what exactly is Palpatine building, how did he come from here, what happened with if you could actually have fleshed out all those stories in a 2-parter. If they made as much money as they did on just this film, if they'd had imagine the amount of money they would have made, and we probably then would be getting more Rey. We would be getting more Poe. We'd be getting more Finn stories. I thought that was a huge disservice to Star Wars fans. That's just me because I'm selfish.
Yeah. Well, there was a lot of backlash about the lack of Rose in this film because she played such a huge part in
The Last Jedi.
The Last Jedi, and then all of a sudden it's like she's not even a relevant character in Episode 9, and I feel like there were moments that they could have had her and given her more character development, because I feel like people didn't really like her that much after what happened at the end of The Last Jedi. But I feel like, again, like you said, a disservice. Make that a two-parter, and we would have gotten more of that, and I think that would have been really great.
Absolutely. And I know Jory's got a lot to say. Jory?
Bring the pain.
About Rose?
Or anything.
Oh, well, yeah, with Rose for sure. I think that they had different plans for, how they were going to approach Rose, especially in The Last Jedi, or not The Last Jedi, but Rise of Skywalker. So I think that with the passing of Carrie Fisher and maybe how they had to kind of rewrite the movie, or take it in a slightly different direction, they had to cut Rose out a bit.
Yeah.
And so I get, why, and maybe they had more scenes planned, with her, with Carrie and things like that. But, obviously not having Carrie there, that they couldn't have as much interaction as what they wanted for her. But yeah, no, I definitely agree. I'm not a huge Rose fan. I don't know why. I don't know. She never really struck with me a ton. She's not a bad character by any means. She wasn't one of my favorites either, that I was like, I needed more Rose. But I definitely think that, with the passing of Carrie Fisher and the different directions they had to take, it cut into her screen time.
And she's got a compelling history. And I think that's what's so fascinating, is the story with her and her sister and why they joined. And now she has this loss of her sister. Like, she's empowered to do the right thing. And I thought that was really cool in The Last Jedi, and we could play on that a little more. But also what was weird was her relationship with Finn. And it's like, okay, well, that's non-existent other than their interaction on that Star Destroyer where she yells out, Finn, and he's like, I'm going. It's like, that's as close as they were, like, in this entire film, which was weird because they were making out on the dust planet. Forgive me, I forget what it is. Jory.
They definitely, you guys definitely should read Rise of the Resistance, or no, Resistance Reborn.
Shit. I think I have 3 chapters.
It actually does a lot of explanation as to backstory and things like that. It kind of helps with some of those questions that you might have after watching The Rise of Skywalker, and you didn't realize you had questions about it until you go back and you read it. You're like, oh, okay, that makes sense, and that explains it. And you may even find out about a character in a previous book that was written that we did a recent review on.
Come on.
And because actually when Holly said something about a certain character, I was like, ooh, she needs to read Resistance, or Rise of the Resistance, or Resistance Reborn, Judas Priest.
They all sound the same.
It will give you a little bit of clarity on that.
Okay.
Jory's title confusion is totally understandable, because I did the same thing last podcast, because they did release a novel called Rise of Resistance around the same time as Resistance Reborn, and that's the one that I was trying to talk about last time. I kept calling it Rise of Resistance. But it's definitely Resistance Reborn. And I think the Rose thing, like, to me, I understand people like Kelly Marie Tran, and I like her. But when you look at what purpose she serves in The Last Jedi, is largely to give the broader, like, galactic perspective outside of just the main protagonists. And she gives the backstory of kind of her experience, and then what she knows about Canto Bight and what that represents. Leading into, the Broom Boy and everything. Like, she brings that angle to the story, where in 9 they shifted that angle basically to Lando, uniting all the the extra help throughout the galaxy that shows up, and then like Jannah, being another group of stormtroopers who defect from the First Order. I think those two characters give you more of that galactic perspective. Plus Zori, as well. So you're getting all that from those characters, and at that point it kind of crowds out Rose, and now she's just any member of the Resistance at that point. So I think it wasn't like, I don't think JJ went into the movie saying, let's cut back Rose's role. It just like, as they introduced these elements, her perspective just kind of faded away because her perspective was being provided in other ways at that point. So I don't think there's any like thing that JJ had against the character.
Yeah, I almost forget how many characters are in that movie. like big characters. Like,
yeah,
they introduced so many characters, like new characters in this film, but just very briefly.
Yeah, true. Yeah, but then Zori's was to provide some background on Poe, which was effective. Like when you really need it, I don't know, but it was funny, I guess, even. But it's also funny. We'll move on here. That Rob, said at some point you just start, associating the best finale ranking with the episodic title, or what number it is, and wouldn't you know it, Holly, The Last Jedi coming in at number 8.
Come on,
it's pretty funny. So maybe they gave up at 8. I don't know. Holly, a film that I thought for a while you appreciated, and then we find out in the rankings, news to me, that you put it way, way, way back there. But finale-wise, if you're thinking of highlights of the movie, maybe, like, is 8 justified?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that 8 is justified. I don't know. I don't think that, for me, I would put it any higher than 8.
Okay.
I don't know. I might switch it out with
Solo.
Clone Wars.
Solo, probably.
Solo.
I don't know.
Solo.
It's hard.
That's fair phrasing. That's what she said. Rob, I don't know if it's your favorite movie or not, but I mean, there's some good stuff there with the Kylo Luke confrontation. Luke literally projecting himself from God knows where in the universe. I mean, that's some powerful stuff. The eventual, ending of Luke Skywalker as we know him, does it deserve to be higher or lower?
I said, of course, this could have been lower. It could have been, because I think that's when you lose Luke at the end that you feel sad, and sometimes you want to feel sad in a good way, like what Episode 5 did for you. But I couldn't see this being any higher. And at this point, like I said earlier, the 8, the 9 kind of thing is what fell in. But if, again, this was about the whole movie being so dark, if you like that kind of dark-esque kind of movie, this is going to be a lot higher for you.
Yep.
And you've seen that when we did all the tops lists.
Yep.
But if you go just like I'm at the end, when I brought up this one, I brought it up because I loved the fact that, going back to the Palpatine rule, this was the first time that a Jedi power other than like Force choke or I threw my lightsaber, was used, and he force projected himself, which that connected with me into the EU universe of how powerful Grandmaster Luke was, as opposed to how the movies kept everything so tight.
Yeah.
And I think that's what keeps this where it's at, is because you've seen a couple slices. You really wanted that lightsaber battle between Kylo Ren and Luke, and what you got was kind of a April Fools.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I remember being blown away by that moment. I had no idea that wasn't actually Luke Skywalker there. I was like, okay, wow, he's doing some Matrix shit. Like, what's going on here? That's pretty wicked. But Jory, I know it's not your favorite, but I mean, would you put this lower?
Actually, I put it higher.
Let's go.
I had it at number 7. I really enjoyed the movie. And once I went back, I've watched it a couple times since we did our rankings, and I actually had it pretty low in my rankings. I think I even had it at 8. Yeah. 8 or 7 in my overall rankings. But I've really started to appreciate once again, the writing behind it and the story. I think that I mean, do we include Kylo and Rey's, battle with, in the throne room? Is that included into the climax? Because if that's included into the climax, it's even higher than what I have it. So I mean, like I said, I have it ranked at 7, and I just think that they're close with their rankings on these ones. But once we get through the next one, then I'll give you my bombshell of why I think this is garbage.
Jory with all the teases.
Luke, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, it's dawning on me kind of what Rob said, that when we did our just movie rankings, my top 3 were Empire, Revenge of the Sith, and Last Jedi, and they're all like 3 more dark chapters of all 9, which is kind of, I guess, telling about me. So yeah, I could definitely rank this higher, given that the movie overall runs higher for me. But like Jory was saying, it kind of gets into this talk that we're having in episode 9.
Yeah. Oh, Luke just muted himself.
I might have done that.
Or did you mute him?
Oh,
Alex just muted you accidentally. I don't know.
I didn't mean to.
Did you get most of what I was saying?
No. He said Jory was getting to him, and then I cut you off.
Oh, okay. So yeah, Jory was saying like, well, what counts as the climax with 9? And this too, like you count the stuff in the throne room with Ben and Rey fighting the Praetorian Guard, like that's epic stuff. The Holdo maneuver kind of happens at the same time. But again, you probably can't count that as the climax. Like you can't count the Ben turn in episode 9 as the climax. So then it might not be as high as it was in my overall rankings at number 3. Because of that, so you might bump it back a little bit from there, like I don't know, 5, 6.
Yeah.
But the stuff with Luke showing up to provide the distraction and confront Kylo, very powerful for me. His connection with how he shows up to sort of perk up the resistance in the base first before he goes out and confronts Kylo. I think that's a really important step, that they needed that little pick me up. But to move on to the next step, so that it's powerful enough to bump up a little higher, but probably not as high as it was in my overall rankings.
That's fair, and let's not forget that wink that Luke gives C-3PO, because I'm pretty sure 3PO was onto him, Holly. I'm pretty sure he knew that wasn't actually Luke, and because I recall maybe even says Master Luke, like almost it fluctuates there at the end, because I think he's questioning is that him. So 3PO.
Doesn't he hug Leia?
What's that?
He hugs Leia, right? He hugs Leia.
He gives her a kiss on the head. Yeah. And
there
so
it is.
he's interacting with his environment. I don't know. It was their connection. Maybe.
So good.
And that's the moment that everyone wanted to see, and we actually got to have that moment, which I thought was very effective. It was almost like Rian Johnson knew, that this needed to happen, which was great. But we move on to number 7, Holly, and it's number 7, The Force Awakens. No surprises. I want to go to Jory, because I feel like Jory's got this. Is it time for the bombshell?
It is time for the bombshell.
Okay.
Which actually, so in my own rankings, I had this ranked at number 8. So I mean, I just flip-flop what they had done. But what kind of irritates me about it is you get this vibe from what this article is doing. It's basically just, taking a crap on anything that Disney had its hands in.
Yeah.
And so they're just, they're very biased against what Disney has done, which I think is extremely unfair. Because, I mean, you're going to continue to see throughout, what they say and things like that. And so what irritates me about the article is just the fact that you can tell it's just a very, very biased article, on maybe one person or a couple people that, this isn't my Star Wars type,
Yeah.
And so I guess it maybe just my interactions throughout the internet make me not like this article very much at all, even though that they're close in some of the, what they're saying, but it's just their presentation of it. And then I'll give you a quote from the article itself. It says, talking about this one, The Last Jedi, because it's actually in this, would probably top the sequels if not for The Rise of Skywalker's weak, if not ignorant writing. And so it's just, like it's they're saying that they would do better, without giving their actual solution to it. It's like saying that there's a problem, but then not giving a solution to the problem. I'm just gonna hold up my sign, Star Wars sucks, but not actually give you an answer as to why it sucks and what I would do to make it better. And so that's kind of the vibe that I'm getting with this article. And but like I said, I think that it's a fair ranking as far as their spot, but their reasonings are pretty ridiculous in my eyes.
That's like the same or the same quote that I read Michael before we even started this podcast. Because I told him, I said, I think I pretty much disagree with everything that's on this list for the most part. And then I read him that quote and I was like, can you believe it?
Yeah.
But I mean, it's fair. I mean, they're entitled to their opinion, but it is definitely nice to know, like, this is why I don't like it and have like a legitimate reason.
Absolutely. I'm realizing like we could talk about this roster of rankings here for 3 hours. Like this could be the longest casual council ever. And we may just have to go to a couple people for each movie at this point, because who knows? I mean, my equipment may shut down at any moment. I don't know how reliable Skype is either. So we might limit to a couple people each movie. But Holly, I want to ask you, you recall episode, 7 from 2015. I mean, you were probably just getting out of high school at that point, but I feel like you recall the movie, right? Mm-hmm. What does it deserve a higher, finale ranking than 7?
I don't know. Maybe
Holly has no opinion.
I have no opinion about this one, actually, I guess.
Okay, that's fair. Hey, I'll give my opinion here, and then I want to go to Rob here and ask him. But to me, the lightsaber fight was the most real lightsaber fight I think I'd ever seen in Star Wars. I thought it was messy, and I liked that. You're dealing with a couple juveniles here that, I mean, as far as we know, Kylo Ren here has never probably fought anyone with a lightsaber. And everyone says he's so powerful. He's been training. It's like, how long with a lightsaber and against who? Because we didn't see Snoke have a lightsaber. I mean, was he fighting Praetorian Guard? Like, I don't know. But I love that it was just real. I love that I believed that moment was actually shot in a forest and was actually all a made-up set. I thought that was insane. And you can't also forget about the death of Han Solo. I mean, his son murdering him in cold blood. I never, ever, I mean, we knew Harrison Ford wanted to get out of things, but I personally was so shocked by that. It was held in such secrecy in production. Rob, I mean, it was a great finale.
That was one of those finales you needed, because you got Finn with if you go back, of course, we all know the nostalgia that a lot of people didn't know if Finn was the Jedi or if she was, but that's the finale you want. You want the actual hits getting in. You want her showing that she is powerful, even though untrained. And then at the same time, you get where Kylo is still weak, where he's still like, he needs more time. But was that his ultimate plan? Was this all? Because we want to talk about Palpatine always doing his thing.
Yeah.
But like when I brought it up last time at the book council, that when he killed his father, he talked about he knows what he has to do.
Yeah.
And maybe he knew what he had to do to make the shape, because once he got Rey close to Snoke, he was able to make that final blow to Snoke to take over. And I think that's what kind of is that Vader-esque moment in him.
Yeah.
So when I go back to 7, that's what starts it all. That's when you get the Millennium Falcon. That's when you get Han Solo and Chewie. That's when you get all the characters back together. Yeah. And you get the final end, you get Luke. So if you go off the end, if you don't think handing the lightsaber out was epic to you. If you don't think that all that at the end was epic to you, this is where it falls. But as I said, in my movie ranking, 7 is where 7 is.
Yeah, and I think it might be a fair ranking. I could even see myself putting it a little higher. But for the sake of not having a 6-hour podcast, we're gonna move along. And I know this is one I want to hear from Luke Skywalker. That was intentional. The elder one. It's so funny that Rob said this, Holly, that and eventually they're just going to start going with the actual episodic numbers here. But we've got episode 6 coming in at number 6. Luke, the article itself says that it actually may not have been the best executed finale, which I don't know if I agree with. I thought it was beautiful. But how about you, my friend? Is it higher than a number 6?
Yeah, I think it has to be, given Vader's turn.
Yeah.
The redemption of Anakin Skywalker may be the single biggest moment next to his fall in all of Star Wars. Like, Anakin is what defines Star Wars, really. So, yeah, to me, it's got to be higher than 6. That the final, everything that takes place like on the Death Star, in the throne room, in Return of the Jedi is powerful to me.
Yeah.
Luke's rejection of Palpatine's temptation, his willingness to stop fighting and die if that's all that is left to him, to not fall to the dark side, and then Vader's decision to intervene and stop that from happening. It may very well be number 1 if I had to sit down and really calculate it all out, So yeah, 6 seems really strange to me. Okay, if you throw in like the space battle, which I love, but it's just another space battle. Or the stuff on Endor with Ewoks, fun stuff, some goofy stuff in there.
Yeah,
that's all cool. But like, the heart of it is Anakin, Luke, and Palpatine there.
Absolutely.
And so it's got to be 1 or 2 probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you want to hear what the author of the article said held the movie back, it was they said, the entire throne room scene is excellent, but what holds the climax of the movie back is everything else.
That's insane.
From the stuff on Endor to the existence of a second Death Star, the elements aren't bad, but they hold the film back.
Here's why I disagree with that so much, because it's silly. There's teddy bears fighting the Empire here, but then you have this epic scene going on in the stars with the Emperor himself, father and son in that moment. And to me, they don't feel like they're that different. Like they are different, but it blends so well because you get a little bit of silliness with such a serious moment. I mean, Rogue One was also dealing with some very serious things. They also had some fun moments there on the ground. Maybe a little more serious, I guess, with everyone dying. But I'm with Luke. Like that, Luke's rejection of hate and trusting that his father is actually going to save him and also reject that hate is insane. When were we seeing this in movie making up until this point? I can't recall. It was just beautiful, and I don't give a crap if him throwing the Emperor off looked silly. It's just the moment itself, and that's when I take myself out of actually like what it is that I'm witnessing. It could be the crappiest graphics of all time, and I'm getting a feeling, oh my God, that's what takes over the moment. It's not the Ewoks. It's not any of that. It's not the silliness, because that's the fun part of episode 6. But it's just, you're right. It's a 1 or 2 in my opinion, Luke, and that's why I went to you on that one, because I knew that would be a little controversial, and it was. It was. A higher rank. We're in number 5 here, guys, and we're outside of episodic rankings here at this point. I know this is a favorite of Jory's, so I'm going to come to him. Rogue One coming at number 5. It's an epic scene, even just the last few minutes with Vader owning, rebels. It's what we've wanted to see for years. It's what we've been getting in comics. Now we see actually why those rebels were so fearful when the opening of episode 4, or as Star Wars as it originally was, we see why those guys were fearing for their lives. This is what happened. So explain to me, brother, is it higher? Should it be lower?
I have it exactly at number 5.
Okay.
And and so then we start getting to that sticky spot again of what's the climax, because that's almost epilogue again, with Vader.
You're right.
But I definitely think that what they did, especially just in one movie, in one story, and how they made you feel, and if anybody watched the Trivia Trials, they realized that I didn't get to watch the end of the movie as much as I wanted to. But I think that what they did and how they built that up to almost just still make you guess, in the back of your mind, you almost know that nobody can survive because you don't hear about them, in the original trilogy, but you still just like, how is this going to go, and they have you on the edge of your seat the entire time. Like I said, I had this at 5 as well. And going back to the last one, I had that at number 2 as well,
Let's
Luke.
Go. Let's go.
Yeah, that's
well. There's something great about this movie with characters that we never see again. This is the first time we've seen them, and then we never see them again. The whole last third, everyone knows that's the huge epic battles and everyone dies. It's amazing that, to me, that entire 33% of the end of the film is the finale, because you care about Chewie, you care about Baze, you care about Diego Luna, Cassian Andor, you care about Jyn, and in one movie. Yeah. In 50 minutes, we cared about these characters so much that it was impactful. K2SO, bald.
I think this might be shocking to you guys, because I know that historically,
no shockers here.
I am not a fan of Rogue One, but the more I watch it, the more I appreciate it, and I actually would put this higher than 5 on my list.
This is what I love. Yeah. It's changing, people evolving. It's fantastic.
I'd probably put it at number 3, because I just think that the whole end was really fantastic. Yeah. Like we've all said, that last third of the movie, and I don't know. I know in the beginning I was like, I can't do Rogue One, but now Michael's made me watch it 7 times.
Let's go.
And I really embraced it. And I just think this article claims that there's no character development, so there's no emotional connection to any of the characters, and I highly disagree. I think part of the reason why I didn't like the movie in the first place was because everyone did die at the end. Yeah. And I was like, I literally came out of, I saw the movie in the theaters, and I came out of the theaters feeling very depressed and defeated.
Got out of 9th period and went straight to
even though I understand, when you're going into the epilogue and you see Princess Leia at the end, and there is supposed to be that feeling of hope. I didn't walk away from this movie feeling that way. But I just think that the bravery that all of the characters show throughout this whole thing, I don't know, it's just phenomenal.
No, you're absolutely right. It was a game-changing film, and the fact that we got such an amazing anthology film when we were expecting more, and it doesn't feel like we're getting that anymore. It doesn't feel like we're getting these kinds of stories anymore. We're reverting back to familiarity. We're reverting back to Obi-Wan. Yeah. I want to see it. But this was a familiar story that none of us ever expected we were going to be getting. It was such an impactful moment. And 30 minutes of it's a finale to me, because I freaking love the movie. And I love that everyone's Star Wars stories are ever evolving. You know what I'm saying? When Holly and I first started talking about Star Wars, hated Rogue One. Hated it. And like you said, after 7 viewings and some conversation, Holly, it's coming around to be one of your faves.
Yeah.
I love it. And that's happening with all of us. When we looking at this list of movies and rankings, this is a totally different perspective. I've never looked at the movies like this. I've just been like, what's my favorite of all? But it's now we're looking at big time moments, and it may not be your favorite movie, but wow, holy cow, when Darth Vader laid down all these rebels, that was sick.
Yeah.
I don't care about any character. They were not developed, but holy cow, that was amazing. So it's fascinating that our stories are ever evolving, and with that, we're going into number 4. Going to the prequels man himself, Rob. Number 4 is Episode 1, the 1999 cinematic classic, Phantom Menace.
Big sigh.
I mean, this could be a lot higher. You definitely could, because going where they put 6 and 5 at, you get that, but what you were just talking about is you get everybody dies, Vader's crazy, and you get a little hope. And that's not the way you want a movie to end. When you talk about a way of movie, you want great fighting in space without Anakin going, oh, I got, whatever. And then you get the dual battle between Darth Maul and Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon. And I know all of you remember watching. I mean, I remember this is day one for me. So when I saw that fight start, when he put out the double lightsaber, my heart dropped. Like, hey, how can you do that? And you're like, you're taking 2-on-1, and we know that's how that they do stuff. But then you think more. It's like putting up two monks against like Jet Li. Yeah. It's why is there always two Jedi against one evil Sith? And that's what the final battle is about. Is about how two can become over one. But Qui-Gon was way too gassed because of his age. And I think when I go back to Obi-Wan and when I talk about Obi-Wan, it's always about his duty. He's always about the way he does it. So when he comes out of that final thing and does that jump double swing at Maul, I almost freaking lose it every time because it's like the best thing ever. And I think if you're going to think of that, you can put it in 4, but then you get that and you get the burning of the body. And if you read Master or Apprentice and you get the whole thing up to that, I think it puts this movie higher, but a lot of people won't read. So I guess that's where it falls.
And that's fair. And a soft-spoken Qui-Gon, a mysterious figure, falls at the end, and you're right. It ends in death. It ends in we're literally burning a Jedi, Holly. A sacrifice he made. All the ultimate sacrifice there, and we're honoring him, and then almost maybe that's the epilogue, like Luke said, but a little annoying Annie saying, what'll happen to me now? It's like Qui-Gon's burning. Okay, why focused on that? That moment, it kind of took me out of things, but it's an important message there, and I love in the Duel of Fates, like Dave Filoni's recent kind of description of things. It makes it even bigger than just a lightsaber battle. It makes it bigger than what we all kind of we all knew it was bigger than that, but he put it in such a way that just spoke to all of us and made this such a much more impactful moment. But I mean, it was things we'd never seen. You've never seen Jedi interact with like this with a laser sword. You just never have seen that. I mean, Luke and Vader was pretty epic, but you never see anything like this. I mean, this is all choreographed and beautiful. You never see a double lightsaber. Like, these are things we never ever thought we would, we would be getting. We never thought we'd be getting pod racing. I wouldn't say that's, I would not say that's the climax of the film.
Well, Michael, we know you love pod racing because
I'm actually pretty decent at it, Holly. Pretty decent at it.
He only crashed a few times.
Only a few times, but we'll talk about that another time. But I'm going to practice tonight. So episode 4 in there. Luke, you have anything to say about not episode 4?
Episode 1.
Episode 1 there at the 4 spot.
I would probably bump it back 5. But,
okay.
Agree with a lot of what Rob said. The Duel of the Fates is epic. What it sets in motion for the course of Anakin's life to follow, like Filoni so beautifully laid out in the Star Wars Galaxy or gallery on the Mandalorian behind the scenes. It's all there. And again, with all these split screens, climaxes of multiple things going on in multiple scenes, multiple battles. Yeah. You kind of have to pick and choose which are the most powerful moments. And just like Return of the Jedi, there's weird, goofy stuff going on with Jar Jar taking on the droids, which I enjoy in its own way. Juxtaposed against the seriousness of Maul, Qui-Gon, and Obi-Wan duking it out. But you can easily say that the scales are weighted heavily towards the more serious moments in terms of what the climax really means. Absolutely. I would only bump it outside of the top 4 because I solidly have, I think, the original trilogy plus Revenge of the Sith in my top 4, and I might mix and match them in different orders depending on the day. But I feel pretty comfortable with that in terms of climaxes, so that's why it just kind of gets bumped out of the top 4.
That's totally fair. Yeah, I mean, I think it could be lower, but I mean, the stakes are high. The council has granted me permission to train you. Like, that's a game changer. Like Dave Filoni said, if Qui-Gon trains him, do we get a different Anakin? Who knows? It's crazy. It's crazy. Boy, oh boy, we're in the top 3. And if you're still listening, folks, we're ranking the top 12 Star Wars movies and their finales. Number 3, the original, A New Hope. Jory, I'm coming to you for this one. Is that proper, man? Should it be higher?
I have it at number 6 for me.
Okay.
Still love it. Obviously it's all great. I think that once we start getting into, the other climaxes that top it for me, it was a little bit slower as far as, how everything kind of played out. Obviously, lightsaber duels back in the day were not, what they are now, and what they are with the prequels and things like that. And actually, what probably makes it higher, and even just in my own list, is just the story behind it. Luke having the one shot and taking out the Death Star and all that. But yeah, I have it at number 6.
Yeah, and I think the article alludes to the trench run and these memorable moments that will live in our minds forever. And so I agree, and that's one of those others. It's like, is the Obi-Wan Vader confrontation the climax? Like, it's an amazing moment. He makes the ultimate sacrifice, but like, is it the trench run there on the Death Star and blowing it up? I don't know. It's there's so many great moments in it. So we're moving out of the top 3 with one of my favorites, A New Hope, and here's where it's gonna get controversial, guys. I think some folk are gonna have some issues with this. Coming in at number 2. And I'm going to go to Luke on this one, and we're going to get some other discussion because we're in the top 2 here. Luke, when we ranked these films, you had episode 3 up there. Was it number 2 for you?
Number 2, yeah.
And my friend Screen Rant puts the climax at number 2 as well. How do you feel?
Solid. Yeah, I think I'd have to put it at number 2 in both lists pretty comfortably. And I want to throw one more episode 4 thing in real quick. When I was thinking about Rob being on the council tonight, like Rob's energy, to me, like the defining Star Wars moment that fits Rob the best from what I know of Rob and my experience is Han coming in to save the trench run.
Yeah.
All right, kid, you're clear. Yeah. Now let's blow this thing and go home. Like, that to me is like Rob right there.
Yeah. Ultimate phrasing in Star Wars.
He's like coming in, shooting, bring the pain. Take it, kid.
There he goes.
But as far as Revenge of the Sith goes, no, that's like I was saying earlier about Return of the Jedi. Like, I could easily do Revenge of the Sith 2 and Return of the Jedi 1 for climaxes because they're the bookends, kind of Anakin's fall and Anakin's redemption, which is kind of the heart of the Skywalker saga, as far as I am concerned. Yeah. So I love Revenge of the Sith. I often say my favorite hour of Star Wars is the final hour of Revenge of the Sith. Solid number 2. Can't argue with that.
You really can't. If it's not in your top 3, which I would probably put it at 3, but like, as much criticism as the prequels get for whatever it is, the acting, green screens, whatever it was. I mean, the story itself is great, but man, did they bring it. It's almost as if 90% of their energy was for that last hour of this film. The photography was beautiful, but I mean, this is the Obi-Wan I want to see more of. I want to see darker Obi-Wan in his series, but you were the chosen one. You were my brother. Like, that's the moments that stick out that are just, that's a climax.
And this is
the fault of the darkness. This is, there's Obi-Wan, the last hope for the galaxy in this moment with the light shining and fading. You're like, oh, shit's getting real. And I mean, it's such a great moment, and whatever criticisms you want to give the prequels, that movie's up there, and it's I think two's warranted, Holly. Am I wrong?
I guess 2's good.
You were a big fan of Hayden Christensen's feathered hair there, I believe.
Oh my God.
There's a lot of hate there that we're going to have to get to in another episode on. Holly can talk about why she hates Hayden Christensen. It's not for any of his acting.
Hate is a strong word.
You're upset with him. And Hayden, if you're listening, you can make this right. You can call into Flying Casual and make this right with Holly. You can make this right. I encourage you.
That's right.
To do so.
Our number's scrolling on this screen somewhere.
That's right. Rob, I want to get your episode. Did we talk to you about episode 3 at all?
Not yet. I know Jory's hot as shit right now. Like, he's down there. He's fuming, man. He wants it all. So all I'm gonna say is, again, this is why Obi-Wan is my favorite movie character. Yeah. Because again, it's about his duty. When he comes out and he said only Sith speak in absolution. Did I say that right? Sith kneel in absolute.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he just goes, then I must do my duty. That is Obi-Wan. That's all. I can't say anything more that Luke, but I know Jory is freaking jacked up. But that's the only thing I want to say is that moment right there is one of the moments why he was my number one when I said movie Jedi, because Obi-Wan.
It's amazing. You're right. He even says I'll do my duty. And that duty and his dedication to the council is almost the reason for Anakin's fall. And though he must stick with that duty to defeat him, what he's allowed him to become. And it's more failure than just Obi-Wan's, but he's a big part of it. Jory, we love it. We love episode 3. I think you might have it up at 1, but I might be wrong.
I do. I have it at number 1.
Know this kid.
I do, and I'm not going to go into my explanation because I think Luke gave the perfect explanation for it. But yeah, it's number 1 for me. And the lightsaber battle, it's just, there is nothing better in Star Wars than that final battle between Anakin and Obi-Wan.
Absolutely. And you know what's great? Them being on Mustafar, I know they probably, it looked cool. And in the moment, it's just all for effect. The lava, the fighting, all that's going on, the explosions. Like, that would be cool if we were fighting on a lava planet. But what I love that they're doing with it, in the new canon stuff is like, you know what? Vader's going to go back to that place where he lost. Yeah. Send him there. And he's going to learn from what he's been through. And he's going to grow more powerful there at the place that he lost. And he's going to build a castle. It's just, I love, and that's what I'm talking about. Give other perspectives into Star Wars, because what was just a cool background in an epic scene turned into it actually, and we're gonna see it in the future, and it has more relevance than just just a cool background for an epic fight scene. So it's fantastic what Disney is continuing to do with these stories. I find it fascinating. Guys, maybe this, to no one's surprise, coming at number 1 is The Empire Strikes Back, a fan favorite when you're ranking the films, but also one of the most epic conclusions in film ever.
Yeah.
I'm your father. People who have never seen Star Wars, Holly, know that line.
100%.
100%. It's actually unfortunate that everyone knows it, because when you try to show someone Star Wars for the first time, they know that line already. Mm-hmm. It's already spoiled for them.
It's not a surprise.
And it's unfortunate. But that's what happens in such a memorable film and such a memorable ending and a great story.
Yeah.
It tends to get out there. Phrasing. Luke, we're synced on this one, I feel like. I mean, what an epic moment. I don't even think half of the actors on set knew this was coming. Phrasing.
Yeah. They were really good at keeping it a secret. The story goes that the lines of dialogue that were actually spoken on set was, you told me Obi-Wan, or you told me that Obi-Wan told me Vader killed my father. Or I'm totally butchering this damn thing.
It's late. You had a couple line and Google. What happened?
Yeah, he said Obi-Wan told me you killed him. And he goes, "No, Obi-Wan killed your father," was the line spoken on set, so that even people on set wouldn't know, except for Mark Hamill was told what the real line was. And then obviously when James Earl Jones was re-recording the lines, he said the real line of, "No, Luke, I am your father," rather than Obi-Wan killed your father. To me, I would put it at number 3 because, again, I have the bookend of Anakin's story of Return of the Jedi and Revenge of the Sith as 1 and 2, and maybe flip and flop them from day to day. Mm-hmm. So then it kind of slots in behind 3. From a pop culture standpoint, it is like the biggest moment in movie history, you could argue.
Yeah.
So I can see how, like, from a wide audience perspective, put it at number 1. Yeah. From a sweatier Star Wars, flying casual level sweaty, that's where I drop it back a little bit. And like you were saying, Michael, I am like torn about the experience that my children might have with Star Wars, because I feel almost bad that part of it's spoiled. Like, my friend got me this really cool book for Father's Day where it's these comics of Vader and like a baby Luke interacting in these really funny ways. No. And there's lines from the movies that are put in these little comic strip type things in really funny ways of like a father-son relationship. Yes. And it's like, I'm showing it to my son, and like for him to get what's going on, like I have to say like, "Oh, Vader's Luke's dad." I'm like, gosh, I just kind of like lay that out there. Yeah. And now, like, he's just gonna grow up in the culture, experiencing that. But I guess I shouldn't despair too much, because being somebody called Luke as a young kid, I had people saying to me on a day-to-day basis, "Luke, I am your father," before I had ever seen Star Wars. So it didn't stop me from being obsessed with it and loving it, having that little bit of it spoiled. So I shouldn't despair too much about that, I guess.
It's no. Jory said he might not be able to make the conclusion. That's okay. We'll get his thoughts at some point. You're right. I personally love their fight too there on Bespin. I love the way it's filmed and just the look and feel to it. But I mean, you can't. It's unfortunate too, because if you're trying to show someone Star Wars now, I mean, for the first time, you even question, where do I start? If I start with the prequels in a chronological order, well, the end of 3 you're going to get spoiled with it. Yeah. I guess Anakin becomes Darth Vader there as well, and then also that Luke is his son.
I could tell you. Yeah. For me, that this moment in The Empire Strikes Back was very anticlimactic for me.
Really?
Because it had been spoiled for me already. See? So like, if you know it's coming, it's kind of like, okay, cool. So I kind of feel like that does interfere with your ability to like, or that would be why maybe like I wouldn't rank this number 1. But exactly like Luke said, I mean, pop culture, yeah. I mean, it was a huge deal, but personally,
yeah. Well, I know I was sweating tooth and nails when Luke's going down that tube and he's hanging on. I still to this day, when he's hanging off of that antenna or whatever, my fingers are sweating. I'm like, oh my God, like maybe that's my heights. I don't know. But it also, that ending kind of left, Star Wars in a dark place. You're like, okay, what the hell are they going to do now? But I don't know. For me, it's one of my tops. But the more we talk about it, like Luke said, I mean, episode 6. Come on, like it doesn't get any better than that conclusion. I mean, that's Star Wars right there. It's family, and this is family too. It makes it complicated. And how much more complicated would it have been if he had actually said Obi-Wan killed your father? Well, then Obi-Wan's a completely different character.
Thank God it wasn't true.
Yeah. Or he's just lying to him. Who knows? I don't know whether the Anakin and company are known for that. So, Rob, I mean, episode 5 there at the number 1 spot. How do you feel?
It's sometimes I think that people fall into what's been spoken the last 30 minutes into pulp culture. Yeah. And I think that sometimes with that climatic ending and, the whole reveal that, no, I am your father, or whatever you want to call it at this point, it just overshadows the lightsaber battles that we all wanted. The actual pain when Obi-Wan was like, "You're my brother."
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
That's that right there. Like, you can just look at it and be like, "Oh, I'm your father." Like, people go find their fathers, all the time. And I don't mean to like compare it to that, but it's like, it's not as compelling as if like somebody all your life turned on you. It's more dramatic. It's more hurtful to you. There's more everything. There's hurt, anguish, sadness. There's so much more. And I think that being turned down and finding out that you were lied to all your life is it's hurt. But I think that somebody you had so many battles with, you and going through the Clone Wars, the books and everything like that, that he turned on you and there was no way to actually change that.
Yeah.
And that to me, that ending is why that should be number one. Because when you want a great book, you want to leave that book, like, I don't mean to bring this up, but like Infinite War. It's why Infinite War was better than Endgame, is because when you see Spider-Man disappear, you cry. You cry.
Yeah.
So
you're absolutely right.
That's what I gotta say. It's just too traumatic, man. It's great.
You're right, and I think we all could move these into that spot. You could move 3 to 1. You could move 5 to 2. Like, you could do that, and it makes sense wherever you put it. Jory, I know you had 3 at your 1, but we've got 5 here at the 1 spot. If any of that makes sense, I don't know. I'm just spitting out stuff now, numbers and stuff. But there's a lot of merit there. I know it's high for you. We were talking about the experience for newcomers to Star Wars and how this epic moment that is a part of pop culture now, it almost spoils that for people, to newcomers to Star Wars. And it's kind of unfortunate because it's a really epic moment in the story. And that's why I think a lot of people put it here at number 1, at least that moment. So what about it to you is at least maybe in that top 5 spot?
Yeah, it is. It's number 3 for me. And I think pretty much just everything that Luke said. I got to hear Luke, what he was saying about it. Pretty much he hit everything on the head with what he was saying. Just the cinematic reveal, and what it did for pop culture in general. And I get why, they have it at number 1. That makes sense. Just for me, it came in at number 3. And I think that, as we rank these, and even if we do this in the group and kind of see what everybody says, we're going to see everybody's list is different, in their personal preference. And but there's going to be some pretty good staples, and I think that most everybody will have this in their top 3, top 3, top 4, and I think that it is rightfully so. Just everything to do with the climax really hits home with pretty much anybody, whether you want action, whether you want that feel, it hits home on all bases.
Yeah, and it's you're seeing also those stories of family and the heartbreak with family and the complexities of family are kind of at the top 5 there, Holly. I think those more intricate stories and I mean also epic lightsaber scenes, but the ones that tear at your heartstrings about family and brotherhood and all that good stuff are there because they're just that impactful, and that's why they're a great climax. And you're absolutely right, Jory. I cannot wait for the rest of the casual fam to hear this. So Brent's going to get a ranking going. He's going to get a ranking going, and I can't wait for that. And it's just, this, Holly, it's been a long conversation. We've been recording for a while now, but this is the kind of conversation that friends have about Star Wars.
Yeah.
Just when I think this Screen Rant article could be a little silly, and, I'm sure people do this all the time, this is what friends do when they talk about Star Wars. It's absolutely what friends do, and that's exactly what we're doing here. I'm glad we didn't go to Kyle for any commentary, because he would have just said that episode, oh, God. I don't even know what episode he would put as the top 1. Probably
7. 100%.
Are you
7.
sure? When
7.
He kills his father? I thought maybe when Vader, I don't know, wrecks everyone in Rogue One. I thought he would idolize that one.
I think it's about Kylo Ren for Kylo Ren.
Just all Kylo Ren. That's fair. Well, now he's
it's all about Kylo Ren.
Luckily,
There's no other way.
But Holly, this is what we do. You know, you give us a topic, we'll talk about it for 2 hours.
I mean,
and we just happen to record it.
Yeah, we'll dissect it.
Absolutely, guys. This has been one of the most casual councils that I ever could have done. I wasn't expecting to talk about this stuff, but Rod, did you have any final words there? Did you just have something you want to say?
My top two are always anything that I fight in. So it's going to be Rise of the Skywalker, but number one is always going to be The Last Jedi because I tear up the Praetorian Guard.
Well, that's true. He did do that. That's very true. But guys, this is a long one. I hope you stuck through it, and we're gonna get the entire Casual Fams rankings on the Facebook group. I know we will. So if you haven't joined that group, and maybe this is the first episode they're listening to, Holly. I don't know. I don't know where people started podcasts. Do you go to number 1? Do you go to 36? I have no idea because I don't actually listen to a ton of podcasts.
Do you listen to this one? Every Monday morning.
Every Monday morning. You better listen to it. Only for quality control purposes, Holly. But guys,
unless you're part of it, then you don't have to be. Because you're part of the Patreon. Oh, yeah.
Let's go. And these guys get a little extra behind-the-scenes access that I'll just say that. So if you're interested, go check that out. Check out our tiers. But make sure you get a part of join that Facebook group because that's where it's at. Holly, just a meme about, changing one word in a quote in Star Wars and putting sausage in it. Had a 200 comment thread. It was insanity.
That was wild. And next time we podcast, I'll read some of my favorites of that because I have favorites.
Stay tuned for some highlights on the sausage party. That was the Facebook group the other day there. But guys, that was a long one. That's what she said, but I hope you all enjoyed that conversation. We're always going to be ranking Star Wars, whether it's the lightsaber battles, whether it's the movies themselves, whether it's the finales. We're going to get different perspectives and an ever evolving perspective, Holly. And I think even in this conversation here, it was fluid. Some people making changes, as we're discussing things. I do it every day with Star Wars. One day episode 5's there at number 1, and the next day it's episode 3. You never know what you're going to get.
Like Luke said, it just depends on your mood that day.
It absolutely does. It absolutely does. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this. A little special Casual Council for you, episode 6 here on the Casual Council. We'll get our patron members back for our next Casual Council session for number 7. We'll get them out of the Outer Rim, get them participating on the council. So I hope you guys enjoy this, and we'll see you next time.